Hey guys, guys, girls, them, they, everybody here. So we've got a lot of images that we're going to go through that we'll talk about, and we didn't structure the talk too much because when you take things organically, you find that.
And we're super lazy. And
like more sort of intuitive stuff at the back of your head comes up when you sort of just run through things. So, yeah. Okay, so we had the great opportunity of creating our song, which is the last film in a series of short films for Star Wars Visions 2.
So Star Wars Visions is an anthology by Lucasfilm. That's 2 seasons now, and the first one was just Japanese studios, and this one they wanted to sort of sample from all around the world, see what the rest of the world was up to animation-wise, and we were lucky enough to have contact with Triggerfish, and Triggerfish was the studio that they were interested in.
So this is we were basically the African representative on this global season, and yeah. So we were lucky enough to add some species and planets and all sorts of cool things to the Star Wars universe, and I think we're the first Africans to do that, so it's very cool.
Also the most powerful character in the whole Star Wars universe,
yeah, apparently so, according to fans.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the pitch. This is the pitch that got us the job. We thought we'd put that in there just if there were any students in the room that could see, what it sort of takes. It's a 3-page document.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
So originally, Nadia had an idea about a character that sang, and they really liked that. Then Nadia and I got together, and we kind of came up with a Julia Smuts low, and we came up with this whole new world, new idea.
So yeah, we pitched, we got the job, and then we started gathering our references, and that's what Daniel and my personal sort of reference page looked like, where we would drop all our photographs and
yeah, a lot of this
Daniel's
is going to be
paintings.
pretty messy, behind the scenes sort of stuff.
Yeah.
We've not cleaned anything up for you guys.
And then references. So both of us immediately knew that we wanted to reference the Chapman's Peak in Cape Town, for those who know.
Yeah, the world we created was very vertical. It sort of had these vertical rock spires to kind of. My thinking was it sort of adds to the visual drama. It's just for free, really. You get the sense of drama just by the design of the landscape. And Nadia and I both, love Cape Town and especially love Chapman's Peak. The sort of colors and shapes of the rocks and how the rocks change from the bottom to the top. And so we were very inspired by Cape Town. A lot of the plants and stuff are just straight copies of Fynbos.
Yeah. So as you can see, like the rocky landscapes, these are paintings that Daniel did. At least for us, we look at that and we can clearly feel Cape Town. We can feel Chapman's Peak in those in these sets.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is Fynbos, which I'm sure you all know, and we basically just copied it. Added the sort of look and feel of our film was very based on toys, felt, tactile materials, sort of nostalgia, basically, and we wanted to actually make everything out of felt, the plants, the ground, the rocks, and we were told...
that looks like it's made out of felt,
Exactly.
That's real. That's like a plant growing from the soil, but it looks like it's made out of fabrics, and if you touch the flowers, it feels like paper, it sounds like paper, so we took that into our film.
We were told that adding groom to the whole world would be expensive, so it ended up just being the characters. So there's a lot of Philippe Rios' work, the production designer, just coming up with variations of plants, looks.
So something worth noting about this project is that we obviously had our budget, but what we wanted to do with that budget, our vision far outstretched the actual budget that we had. And so we had to come up with different ideas and solutions to try and get the highest potential of our artists and the vision that we have, but by keeping things somewhat manageable. And one of the ways that we did that is that we'd have, these are the plants we have in the entire short, and you could see that there's basically, I don't think this is all, but it's something like this, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then each plant has like multiple versions, and we would just populate the whole world, the whole short with those plants, and that's one of the ways that we would try and like save money, but still, push the quality. Because if you look at the landscapes, it's pretty vast, pretty expensive, so we had to.
It's huge, yeah. And we tried sculpting the rocks from scratch, but there was just far too much landscape to get through, and we couldn't afford the artist to do it. So we actually downloaded from, what's that site called again?
I can't remember, but we used like real scans of real rocks in the real world,
Mega
so we
scans,
didn't have to, so we didn't have to build everything from scratch, which also saved us, a lot of time and money. It doesn't save us like effort, because the artists then have to learn to work with all these sort of out-of-the-box solutions to building a world. But at the end of the day, all the artists grow from that experience, from having to, sort of like put sticky tape here, sticky tape there, and yeah.
Yeah, so this is the home of our two main characters, the father and daughter. You can see the sort of padding on the walls. If you've watched the film, you know that it's about her singing and the dangers of her voice. We really wanted it to feel like a place you wanted to be. I think I remember somebody describing the ideal film as a place you want to go with a problem you don't want to have. So both of us, me especially, is very inspired by Ghibli and the sort of the warm home familiarity, nostalgia feel that he manages to evoke in his films, and I really wanted to capture that. I wanted to show a space that looked like people actually lived there, with things like slices of meats, and to just make it feel real, like this is where they live. This is they use this space in this sort of a way. It's not designed just to look good or just for the film. It's designed as though the characters themselves actually built it for themselves. Once again, the sort of drama that you get for free by just putting a house on the edge of a cliff, it immediately has it gives you a feeling,
It's kind of like, whoever knows Chapman's Peak, if you could actually live on Chapman's Peak, it's the kind of like the feeling we're going for. So this is just an example of like some of the silly stuff we'd have to look at when we...
This is exciting to see for the first time.
Yeah, developing the film. We'd put something like this together before, making the big sets, just to get a test of like scale. Does the texture on the rocks feel right in comparison to the scale of the character, and et cetera,
we call it our sort of diorama, which we used for quite a long time, just adding to it, because you could test the groom against the plants, against the rocks, and see how they all sort of fit together and how long they took to render and all those sort of things. It's a very useful way of doing things.
And then this is when we started, Daniel painted this, and we started talking about the kyber crystals inside the rock and the relationship between the inside of the rock and the outside of the rock and what that looks like. This is the speeder.
The speeder. I really enjoy designing these things. I think a lot of the Star Wars aesthetic is similar to things that I like, the sort of World War II curved, where you see the rivets, you see how the thing is made, a lot of...
Studio Ghibli.
Sorry?
Studio Ghibli.
Studio Ghibli, yeah. Well, I was trying not to just too blatantly copy Studio Ghibli, but a warmth and a friendliness and a sort of like a tone to the designs, like simplicity of shapes and textures.
Stuff. All the stuff that goes in the world.
Yeah, once again, this is we're just showing you kind of uncleaned up behind the scenes, just how the sausage is made.
So thinking about the characters, we really wanted this whole world to feel like, to give people the sense of like sort of the feeling you get when you play with your toys outside when you're a child, So that's why the characters sort of look the way they do, feel a bit like toys. The textures all feel like it's real. It feels like you can touch it. So we were very inspired by dolls, toys, stuff that reminded us of playing as a child.
Yeah. And nostalgia was a big theme altogether. Everything,
Yeah.
even to the final grade, we wanted the film to look like film, like celluloid.
Yeah. And then you can see that's our main character, Au. The cute little maquette in the middle there.
Yeah, so the main sort of influences, we wanted obviously to have some connection to Africa and the Indabele dolls that I'm sure everybody's seen at every airport. The sort of beautiful color blocking that they manage, and the geometric shapes, and the beadwork, and they use a lot of felt as well. And Nadia and I were also watching Rila Khumba, which is a Japanese stop frame show at the time. Those were the two main influences. And then Mobius and Ghibli and all my favorite things. Little felt owl.
We didn't have to ask anyone to make this. So one of the artists animating on our film, she loved it so much that she made this herself, and Daniel helped her. But like, you know, that was just amazing. And then we could photograph her and use those photographs as reference for the surfacing artists. Yeah, so we did actually we got someone to make, you know, we commissioned someone to make maquettes, but then this artist actually made one herself just for funsies, you know, which is awesome. That's the father. Kratu, the Jedi.
The Jedi is generally people's favorite character.
Yeah.
We got to make a Mandalorian. We got to make him pink. Some of these characters, like the Mandalorian and this character, are literally in the frame for maybe 1 second in the film.
And this character is like, it's daft. It's like 1 centimeter small. Like you can hardly see it.
It's worth it.
It's worth it.
He's great.
Here's another example of, you know, sort of trying to get the most out of a little. We'd essentially have there's 6 characters at the top, and then we would just like swap the one lady's hair with the other lady's hair. We'd swap the one guy's purse with the other guy's purse, and then in that way we create like lots of different characters, but without having to model, you know, remodel or create new characters. So essentially we could have, you know, 50 characters, but actually only have 6 characters, that type of thing. And those are the kind of solutions that we had to come up with, you know, to try and really push the scale that we wanted and make this world feel populated and lived. But
even just doing that is a nightmare. Like, even the optimized version is just an absolute struggle, you know. We asked a lot from our artists, but everybody rose to the occasion.
Yeah. Some briefs. So this was our onboarding document for all artists that come into the project, and they'd immediately get the link to this sheet, which is basically each column over there, you know, represents something different: VFX or cinematography or animation or whatever. And so this, we thought we'd just show you what our director's briefing package looks like. Again, another way that we saved on resources, we decided, well, actually, this is an aesthetic thing. It's not about saving. We decided that we'd have, I think we had like 50 or 40 to 50 materials, and everything in the world needed to be made from those materials, and that was it. There was no like, okay, this is like a, I don't know.
Bespoke.
Yeah, this bespoke chair is made from titanium and whatever and what. No, like the only metal we have here is iron and gold, and so if you want to have a chair and it's metal, you know, it's got to be made from those specific materials, and that's sort of how we kept the whole short feeling tactile and, you know,
cohesive.
Yeah, and we could really get certain materials looking and feeling good, and then just reuse that really good looking and feeling material multiple times and not have to, you know,
Yeah. This was one of the early rig briefs. I think we were quite ambitious here. I don't think we hit this level of detail, but it was good to have something to aim at, this level of sophistication, and I think the character supervisor found it very useful to have such detailed information, and I enjoyed drawing over them. So.
Yeah, and I mean, this is obviously one image, but we obviously had tons and tons of these types of drawings.
This is Stuart Kutz's work.
This is a dressing brief. I promise you everything on that image makes sense, and it's an instruction for something. That's the entrance to the mine.
Yeah, so we wanted the the world that our characters lived in to feel like it had layers of history that we don't explain or engage with really in the film, but just to feel like there's layers, there's a culture, there's specificity, there's, you know, outside the frame, the world continues and it makes sense. So we drew from a lot of different cultures. I think this is obviously a little bit Asian. More briefs.
Just notes and briefs.
It was the surfacing was a challenge for the surfacing department. I think it was a lot of new people and new roles, but also to have that like feeling of hand paintedness, but also to give it some verisimilitude. You know, making it feel like a real thing. Because the aesthetic was a sort of stop frame aesthetic, but we weren't religious about it. We didn't want to stick to it so everything felt small. We wanted things to feel big sometimes. So when it called for it, the world felt large, or things felt large, and when it was appropriate, things felt small and appealing and warm.
Yeah, scale in general was a big challenge on this project. If you look at this one over here, like this is the carabiner sort of scaled for her, and that's her father's carabiner, you know. So it's like we couldn't reuse the asset that we've already created, you know, for the miners, for the adult miners, you know. We had to scale it down and then retreat the surfacing and the textures on there, because you can't just scale something down with its textures, and all of a sudden it looks so much finer than the metal of all the other things, and scale was a big issue on the project, especially because you wanted them to feel toy-sized, you know.
Yeah. The
That's
strangest,
Bob.
yeah, we call them beasts of burden, the bobs. I think I was actually inspired by one of the animators' dogs, which is what those little Chinese dogs that used to warm the emperor's feet. I don't remember what they're called. But yeah, with that sort of downturned mouth and the flat faces. And then I gave it like, chicken feet, which Hayao Miyazaki does a lot, so I really like the idea of just chimera a bunch of animals together.
These were our sort of the houses in the town. Once again, like so this section would be separate from this section, so that we could take this part and place it on another building, just to create like diversity, you know, and variance among the buildings. So all of our houses were sort of built modularly like that.
Also, once again, for 2 shots, I think.
Yeah.
It's got to be Star Wars. That's the easiest way to indicate Star Wars is, what are these called again? A moisture farm thing.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make much sense in Cape Town, but they look really cool.
This is, I thought we'd just throw that in there. So we had lots of bugs in our short. And so this is an example of like us sort of briefing where we'd want the bugs to be. And we did that for, you know, every shot of the film.
Well, the reason was we wanted the world to feel like a real place, not a, you know, with CG so much feels sterile, so we really wanted it to feel like the world was alive. So not just the characters were moving, there were ants and bugs and butterflies, and it had life, you know.
Yeah, there's a world that exists beyond, you know, the big characters. And you know, what's a cliff without some fleas, you know, or some ants, like.
I mean, come on.
Like even if you don't have those things there, like, you know, the viewer might not notice it, but it's something that you feel, you know, something that you're used to when you're in the real world. So, yeah.
So this is the color script. This was a collaboration between Felipe and myself. I've done a lot of these in my career, color scripts. So I had a pretty clear idea of exactly how I wanted the lighting to be. Obviously, they're in these big spires, so there's lots of big cast shadows, and you can kind of block the frame quite nicely. We wanted the film to feel not too soft lit, which is quite common nowadays. We wanted to use a lot of hard key lighting. We were looking at a lot of like 90s and 80s films like Neverending Story and Willow, and to get that sort of that old film feel in the lighting, where they used more lights, I think, because film couldn't pick up as much as digital does. So we wanted to get that feeling.
Notes. So this is what our artists would get from us every day.
These are animation notes, I think.
Yeah. I think this one's lighting.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
But yeah, man, geez, like our team, they were so receptive to everything that we asked for.
Yeah. And I personally, like, I haven't worked in the animation department before, and I think it was actually the most fun I had was directing animation. I learned so much from Nadia, who's an amazing animator. But I was a little hesitant at first, feeling like, everybody else, all the animators are more experienced than me and I'm directing them, but I realized, hey, I can draw, and I know. So drawing on top of the animation was actually extremely fun to get the poses to the right feelings. And Nadia taught me a lot about timing and stuff.
Of course. Animation briefs.
I told you not to.
So Nadia and I basically acted out almost the whole film. Nadia mostly doing ow and me mostly doing a but, which made sense. Be weird the other way around.
60-10. Shot 42-90.
Oh,
I think this is just our
Shot
animation
10,
briefs.
100. Shot 60, 80. Shot
110, 250.
We look so enthusiastic.
140, 120.
Yeah, it brief, 200 shots.
Shot 130, 300. 40, 325. Exactly. Shot 120, 120.
Why was that significant? No, 120. It's one of the animators acting out the crowd.
For every character. I mean, some of those characters really are like 20 pixels on screen, but they still need reference, they still need that level of dedication and thought.
Yeah, our brief to him was really that these extras are people. We cannot just have generic movements in the background. We can't just have placeholder crowds. It has to really feel like these people have purpose and that they live in this world and they are doing things. Otherwise, it's kind of a betrayal of the film.
Sorry.
It's Nadia almost falling off a cliff. Almost destroying my burglar bars.
Yeah, I destroyed his floor a bit as well. Sorry about that. So I guess talking about animation, a distinct feature or characteristic of our animation is that it's not, it's sort of reduced to a certain extent, the performances. We really wanted to give like a more natural performance out of the characters. And then also just on animation in general, we animated on 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s. So mostly 2s and 3s. But the reason why we did that is because, well, first of all, Triggerfish, the studio, they've done incredible films that sort of mimic stop motion, but in CG. And, that's where I got into animating on lower frame rates, and a lot of our artists that were working on this production
the Magic Lights BBC specials.
Yes, yeah. And just animating on lower frame rates, it's just, to me, it's just, it's so much better. Every pose becomes more important,
Yeah.
and you don't get too distracted by the in-betweens, too distracted about making everything feel perfect,
So we kind of insisted on like 3 poses max, maybe 4 if it's a long shot at the beginning. So the animators didn't, because they tend to start adding too many in between poses, too much movement. So just 3 poses to tell the story of the shot.
So I went to this frame and it's very weird, just to give you context. So like if you look at this example over here compared to that one feels more reduced and it feels more natural, and that's how it as well. And that's just the tone that we wanted to go.
Yeah, we wanted to move away from the, Disney has its thing. It's, big overlaps and anticipations and sort of, it's almost like stage drama. We wanted it more intimate, more film, more restrained, so that when it did go big, that there was contrast, and it had felt like it had an impact.
Which is actually very difficult. It's very difficult to get an entire team of animators who are used to sort of pushing the physics, and really pushing the performance in big ways, to try and get them to do less. It was so hard.
But that's where the shooting ourselves as reference helped a lot, so we could just point back to that again and again.
Yeah, and then also we did this is one slide from an animation brief document, but showing using the actual model to show what the poses should look like, and actually adding examples of which controls to use in order to get those poses, so that all the animators can have some sort of guiding light. Yeah. This is not very exciting to look at, but this is a sheet that we had as directors. We kept track of the frame lengths and everything of every shot throughout the whole process. I was fortunate enough to run the edit, so because one of the directors had control of the edits, we knew what was happening all the time. If something suddenly was 3 frames short, we picked it up. We knew that it was 3.
Which happened a lot.
Which happened a lot. It happened so much.
The whole shotgun started changing things without us knowing, and it became a nightmare.
It really helped us a lot.
And it also helped because the film was supposed to be about 10 minutes. I think one of the directors yesterday on the panel was saying how much trouble they had cutting down the film. So we kind of had 2 edits. We had an edit that we showed Lucasfilm and everybody, which was the right amount of time. And then we had our own edit where we knew, okay, we're going to extend this shot, It was about 3 minutes longer than the edit that we showed people. And the film ended up being, 15 minutes or something.
Yeah.
With the same number of shots. We just knew that we needed those shots to breathe. So, but we also needed it to be 10 minutes, so we just cut the shots short.
Yeah, but the thing is, we could also do that because we're artists ourselves and we've worked in production. We knew what it would take to get that extra time, and we knew that it was possible. And that's why we could run that longer edit confidently.
Yeah, we didn't hide this from Di, from our producer. She knew what we were doing. This was one of the most challenging parts of the film, was getting a look for the crystals. Because a lot of artists in the sort of character animation world they use nuke, but they don't often have to do stuff like this. This is very much almost like a motion graphic artist's work. So we ended up going to a motion graphic artist to come up with a look for the crystal glows in what we called force space, is when our character kind of goes into her world and she can see the force, see the sound of the force.
Yeah, it's something that we had to convince our team to do, which is to embrace using motion graphic software and motion graphic tactics and stuff in a CG pipeline. It was a difficult one to convince everyone that we could do it, but ultimately it saved us at the end of the project. It saved us so much, because there's so much cheating you can do in 2D or with the Adobe software that it's just so hard to get right in 3D. It's just so much more expensive in 3D. So, it was sort of a
lot of stuff ended up being 2D, because Nadia can use After Effects and I use Photoshop, so we could do a lot of just sort of cheat 2D stuff.
Yeah.
These were just some of the early beat boards. So we started writing, and I started drawing basically immediately. And like I said, we worked with a writer, Julia Smutslow, who's amazing. But we found that for us, it was better I would just start drawing boards. We'd put them in the edit, we'd see if it worked, and rinse and repeat that process. And that's really how we kind of did most of the story. We found that writing, especially for such a short thing, and so much of the story is actually tone more than what's happening. It's like visual tone.
We also only had 3 months, I think 3 to 4 months, something like that, to do the story before all the big expensive stuff starts.
And I was the only board artist as well.
Yeah.
Remember, I think we had to cut 3 minutes off the film, and I had 4 weeks to redo the whole film. I think that was the most stressed I've ever been in my life.
Yeah, it's a lot of drawing. Lot of drawing. And also that's why I think we did 3 versions of the script, and then we immediately went into the boards, because we knew that that's where we would figure most of the story out, and we only had that amount of time to get it right. Yeah. But again, I think that worked for us because we could do so much of the stuff ourselves, you know. 'Cause
Yeah,
I
it
could
was very
edit,
much
you
like
could draw.
a student film vibes.
Yeah, I mean, thank goodness for that. Otherwise, I think we wouldn't have been able to push, you know, the scenes as much as we did with the time that we had.
But it's just a side-by-side of the boards in the film. So we stuck pretty much exactly to the boards, which once again helps, is that one of the directors was boarding and, you know, we didn't change our minds.
Yo, just so you know, these monitors are very saturated and contrasted.
Crunchy.
For us, you know, when we look at it, it's like, oof.
Yeah.
So we just got to put that disclaimer out there. But so this clip that we're going to play right now is a testament to what we were saying earlier about like getting rough and dirty and whatever software you can to get the thing done, doing whatever you can to get the sequence done. Our VFX department struggled a lot. They had a lot of just challenges that, you know, in the process, and we had such little time for the effects department to finish all of the tasks and stuff. So at the end of it, this sequence where she's actually singing a song, you know, in the film, it's a very important sequence. We couldn't actually get to a lot of the effects. We had to like seriously compromise in order to get it done, which we didn't want to do. But fortunately, because we're animators, you know, we could step in and we could assist ourselves and work the late hours and get it over the line. So this is just like a few shots that are, you know, testament to that kind of thing.
So to explain, I would do plates, matte paintings or plates in Photoshop, hand those to Nadia, and then she would do the movement and effects and layers and make it all work. And I animated that like crystal lightning explosion thing by hand in Photoshop.
Yeah, it's a combination of all sorts of different things, you know, just like basically doing whatever we can, just putting them together, and literally it is like.
We knew this part of the film had to work. Like
it was sort of just, it was the last thing that we tackled because, you know, I don't know, it just seemed to happen that way.
Terrifying.
Yeah, it was very terrifying. So this is examples of like some of the plates that Danny would paint, and then I'll take it into After Effects.
Yeah.
And like add the effects and animate it and stuff.
These are, so for the destruction also, Nadia and I in Photoshop hand animated a lot of these moving lines to indicate wind and movement, and Nadia did some lines and stuff and leaves and debris in After Effects.
Even the rocks. So like, you know, in a shot like that, most of the rocks, all of that wind, like the wind that you see, obviously not a hair moving and stuff, and the leaves and debris, like all of that are actually 2D plates. It's not CG. You know, and we wouldn't have gotten that chaos if we didn't just break some rules.
If it wasn't
break some
actual
pipeline rules.
chaos.
Yeah.
This is kind of fun to do, 2D effects animation.
Yeah.
Oh, these are just some of the raw plates from my end. So this is all just Photoshop. So quick, so much work. These are some of the, yeah. So these are the sort of things I'd give to Nadia, and then she'd put them all together for the final shot.
This shot over here, that's an example of a shot that, this shot as well, I mean, we weren't really able to add to the film, it had to be cut. But because we could do it ourselves, we could add it into the film, we could have it in the edit.
We just make the shot ourselves, yeah.
And our comp artists were very supportive of it as well, because there were some technical issues with, sort of doing things that way. But fortunately, we had comp artists and a team that was, that believed in the project and that would just like, learn what they had to do to get it right. Yeah.
This was another one. I just did layers of matte painting, and then Nadia made it all move in After Effects. And we could just quickly go back and forth. This bit's missing, this bit needs work. So
Paint pass.
So we had a process in the film called paint pass, where I would paint on top of most shots. Luckily, I'd boarded it. I'd been very inspired by 2D animation, Ghibli, etc. So there's a lot of static cameras or comp moves. So I could paint on top of almost every frame to get rid of that CG. That was very daft, so obviously it doesn't look like that. To get rid of that CG look, which we found was an amazingly powerful way to just up your... Like, these things were never even surfaced. We didn't have time, so I just painted them, And almost every shot, I think, I had a pass
basically every shot.
Yeah.
Which also helped, when we were in review sessions with artists, knowing whatever their biggest challenge was, knowing that Daniel could paint over it later down the line. We could say, okay, leave that challenge. We can fix that in that stage. We could prioritize their efforts and their energies more productively. So, for example, there was some weird-ass technical issue about about these things that they were struggling to get the surfaces and the textures to stick to it. But fortunately, because Daniel could just paint over the renders afterwards, it's fine. They could move anyway, on. So. Yeah, they didn't have to spend an extra full day or full 2 days trying to figure out the issue. You could just fix it in post.
So we worked with Marcus Wormstorm for the music, which was a really interesting process. He's an amazingly talented guy. And our sort of main, I don't know if we actually have music in here, but our main two musical themes references was a 60s synth artist called Mort Garson. Once again, that nostalgia, that tactility, and Bulgarian choir music for the crystals, because we felt like it had the right sort of bittersweet tone, this ambiguity of joy and suffering. You're not quite sure. It was quite funny because Marcus did a whole pass, and it was only 6 weeks before the end of music that he's like, oh, I actually have synths. And he'd been doing it with samples. And we were like, why didn't you tell us this? So we ended up he brought out all his old synths, and it's all real synth music.
Yeah, so basically, I think we worked in the sound for 6 to 8 months or something, and in the last month we redid everything.
Everything.
We redid all the music and stuff that we worked on in the 7 months in the last month. But it was for the best. I think with the when it comes to the music, it really felt like what we got at the end of the day, what we got in the film, it was like a collaboration between 3 people, because Marcus is very much an artist himself. He's a producer, he creates music, he DJs, he plays at festivals and all of that kind of thing. So he's got a very strong sense of desire to create what he wants to create himself. And I think, at the end of the day, what we ended up with it was clearly if we listen to it, you can hear his heart in there. He even used some of his kids' voices and his sister's baby voices in some of the music, which is really special. I guess it's something that we all know. but other people might not know. But yeah. Oh. So this is a wind track where we use our own voices to do the wind sounds.
Imagine the final film was just like... So for a lot of the film, we actually did this for the ship and the speeder. I did like sound effects. Nadia did a lot of the creatures and animals, and we just wanted human voice to sort of permeate into the film as much as possible. Once again, just give it that charm, that sort of that real human feel.
Yeah, again, it's like, when you're playing with your toys as a child, like, like we really wanted that to layer that in there, and we did. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's sort of subtle. It's not like extremely obvious, but it was a lot of fun doing that. I think even some of the Lucasfilm, the Lucas Sound people.
Yeah, they lost my speeder thing.
Yes, so one of the guys on that side, he did a speeder sound, and I think he was excited about that because he didn't expect he's going to have to go record a sound of a Star Wars speeder with his own mouth, Yeah. That was cool. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much it. I think we finished the film, and we actually finished on somewhat of a low note because our biggest challenges in production was at the end. But the film's out there now, and this is someone on YouTube who like posted their own ukulele music on the clip from the film, and like seeing that kind of thing like come out. I think it's really helped us with like closure on the project.
But we thought we finished on a low note, and then we came back and finished on a high note. But with the grade.
Oh no, it's
all low for you.
It's all low note for me. Sorry.
Yeah, there's just somebody did their own thing.
Yeah, man. I mean,
it's
I don't
cool.
know who it is. I wish I could tell them that we played it at the end of a presentation on the phone. But like, if anything tells you like, it's okay. You guys did okay. You did an okay job with this film. It's something like this. Seeing someone on YouTube like put the music to the short. But anyways, yeah. Thank you so much for listening to our battle.
Yeah.
All right, guys, give it up one more time. Nadia Darries and Daniel Clarke. So, guys, we're going to take 1 or 2 questions. We do have another presentation at 12, so we've got about 10 minutes. So we're not going to take too much time. If you guys want to speak to them afterwards, we can do that. But we can take a few questions now. Okay.
Hey. Congratulations, what an amazing masterpiece. It's really inspiring to see how well you worked with one another and what each brought to the film kind of riffs off one another. It looks like you had a really good time, and just each brought so much to it, each other, from different backgrounds. I wanted to ask, in terms of budget, do you think the film would have looked different if you'd had a massive budget, or do you think that having the budget you did helped you be more hands-on and helped you kind of come up with simpler solutions?
Definitely would have looked at. I wouldn't have. Going in, I was anticipating hiring tons of artists who are much better than me to do things, but I ended up doing much more than I thought I would. So which means it would have looked less like our film, I guess, if we'd paid other people to do stuff that we ended up doing ourselves. I don't know which option I'd choose, but it would definitely look different. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just in general, I think constraint and limitation is like the juice of creativity. It's like when you have limitations, like as a human being, you have a natural drive for like expression and freedom. So as soon as you have a boundary, you just want to like push it up against it, and it's definitely a product of that. So if we had a much bigger budget, I mean, I don't know. It might have ended up being the same, because that would have been the ceiling, the new ceiling, and I think we would probably have ended up like really pushing against that ceiling and ended up like putting in the same amount of effort and all of that kind of stuff, probably. I don't know. No idea.
Oh, all right.
I think if you had a bigger budget, it would have been very normal. It would have been very common. The fact that you worked within yourselves as artists shows that brilliance of your work. But as you had a bigger budget, it would have been very, very normal.
Thank you.
No matter the budget, right, there's always going to be a cost. Like you guys put in a lot of your own time. The film did run long. You had things in the background, like you mentioned, weren't seen. You know, like, how do you balance out the personal cost with the actual cost? Like, whose responsibility is it to contain that, you know? Because obviously you as directors want to push as far as you can, but then you're also paying a price.
Yeah, I mean, you got to make that decision for yourself. Well, for how much work we wanted to put in of our own, and for us, well, for me, it was everything I would put in. There was no limits to what I was willing to put in. But obviously, there's the reality of the budget and all the other artists, and you just got to have a close relationship with production, with a producer, and kind of figure out what's the best version of whatever you're trying to do that you can get, and inspire people as much as possible to put in more. The only way a film like this happens is if people put in more than they're being paid for, you know. And yeah, it probably isn't low budget. It probably is normal budget for a short this length, you know.
And also, I think, I don't know if we said low budget, but it's, I wouldn't call it low budget. I'd say the budget was lower than what we were aiming for in our heads. I think that's what it is. But I think also, I think we had Diane as our producer, and she's amazing. I think like when the producers and project managers pay attention, close enough attention to all the artists, and they understand like every artist has a different package of energy that they like willing to give, you know, and willing to share with the project. And once you have a good sense of all the artists, you have a sense of the actual pool of energy that you have to create. And I think that's the place from me, like I would think, you know, personally, like that's how I measure what we have to work with, you know. Because I believe that like I wouldn't want to push someone who really does not want to give any more, you know, because I don't believe in like killing people unless, you know, it's just like, yeah, I know we feel a bit differently about that one, but you know, that's how I feel about it. And so just measuring who's got what energy, who's more motivated, and then you know, speaking with those people about like letting them know which strings need to be tied, and because often those kinds of people who have the energy or who have the motivation, they like want to tie all the loose ends. So you present them with the loose ends, and then they sort of, you know, they go ahead and they just like tackle it. So it's very like person by person.
Love the work you guys showed, and I thank you for all the really nitty gritty. I love all the 2D stuff that you guys, I had no idea that was in there. I'm sorry if you answered this because I came in late, but were you guys given, because Star Wars is such an ingrained, it's been around for decades, and dealing with Lucasfilm, was there any, when you guys kicked off, any parameters that they were like, you must do this or not do this, or, you know, I'm just curious if there are anything like overall that you were not supposed to touch or stay away from or change or...
Yeah, I think, well, thank you for what you said when you started out. I think we really had a lot of freedom, to be honest. But also, obviously, we couldn't touch on anything that was too canon. You know, I mean, we took a risk by adding the Mandalorian there in one of our shots. But like, I think we understood that sentiment enough, and we were motivated enough to like create our own world that we didn't really cross those boundaries of like, you know, touching on anything that we weren't supposed to touch on. Is there anything you want to say to it?
The degree of creative freedom they gave us was crazy. It's like unheard of. They like the whole design stage. We said everything at once, and they just did that. That's it, you know. And story, very light hands. They were helpful. They were good. But yeah, a lot of freedom.
All right, guys, that brings us to the end of this. Give it up for Nadia Darries and Daniel Clarke. Thank you so much, guys.